What is up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Not So Stupid Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the different types of motivation that you are going to experience or need to cultivate to help you through your fat loss journey or any kind of activity or skill that you're trying to develop that you want to stick to. Because I think for a lot of people, they find a way to rely on motivation, even though it is fleeting, it is temporary. It's important to recognize the different types of motivations because there are short-term motivators and there are long-term motivators. And having both at your disposal at any one time is going to be key here to make sure that you never fall off track, or at least if you do fall off track, you're always able to pick yourself back up again and continue moving forward. Because obviously the worst thing is getting started, stalling, and falling off again. And the main reason that people experience that in any kind of endeavor that they're working through is because they're only relying on this one type of motivation as opposed to having this other long-term motivation in place. So what are these motivations psychologically, or I guess I should say in the field of psychology? The terms for these motivations are intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic being an internal motivation, and extrinsic being a motivator from the external world, anything outside of you. So most goals, most pursuits rely on external motivation, extrinsic motivation to fuel their pursuits. For instance, if you are going through a fat loss journey, you are thinking, you get started because of the thought of the external things you're going to achieve and external rewards and recognitions that you're going to have when you're done with this fat loss journey, even though it's going to take months, more likely, if not years in some instances, depending on how much weight you need to lose. You are only thinking about and focusing on getting to fit in that dress later on, the external motivation of reaching a certain size to fit into a dress for an event that you're going to have in the future. The external motivation of maybe you're doing a contest, of winning a reward and getting those prizes. The external motivation of proving somebody wrong and getting compliments from that person, or just showing them up for your own satisfaction temporarily, right? These are all external goals that you have, and they're not wrong to have, but once you hit those points, let's say for instance, once you get into a point where you fit into that dress, you lost all motivation now to continue to work on your health, to monitor your diet, to work out, because you reached the external goal that you were looking for, right? And that's eventually going to lead to weight regain, and that's usually how that happens. When you ultimately reach that point, you have nowhere else to go because you reached the external goal that you're having, and it's not fulfilling. It's in a way, it could help you get started, but it doesn't help keep you going, is really what I'm trying to say. Is with extrinsic motivation, you're really relying on that external thing, and once that thing is either gone or you've achieved it, you have nowhere to go from there. All momentum stops, you really hit a wall, and eventually you're going to cycle up, gain the weight back, and you won't be able to continue or regain that momentum until you find another external motivator, because that's what you've always relied on, right? Now, the opposite side of the spectrum, the more long-term sustainable side of things, is going to keep you going even on days where you don't have anything really to work toward, is the intrinsic motivators. These goals are based more on psychological needs and physiological needs to some degree, and emotional needs. They rely on how the activity itself makes you feel and what you gain from this activity, as opposed to what you're using this activity to gain from it, right? So using the thing as the goal itself, as opposed to a means to an end, as an end itself, as opposed to means to an end. Very deontological view of things, but it's really how it works. So to put it further, working out and dieting for, using the dress example again, working out and dieting for putting on the dress. You're using working out and dieting as a vehicle to get you to work out in the dress, as opposed to working out and dieting because you enjoy working out and moving your body and celebrating your body. You enjoy how you feel when you get a muscle pump and your heart rate up. You enjoy the foods that you're eating and feeling good after eating those foods are two different ways to approach this, right? Again, one is going to be temporary. The other one is lifelong, because you're always going to want to do those things because you enjoy those things. You're always going to want to do those things because they feel good and you know you feel good doing them. That's the big difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivator. It's taking the thing, the activity that you're doing, and doing it for the sake of it and what it can do for you, how it fulfills and satisfies you on a daily basis. The outcomes of these things, again, we're using training and dieting as an example. The outcomes of these things are based on stuff you value deeply. Like me personally, I can talk for myself, and as well as most of my clients that end up working with me, is they want to always feel good about themselves. They want to feel confident. They gain confidence by showing up for themselves, by exhibiting strength, by making these good decisions, by choosing foods that help them feel good, feel energized, have good digestion, never feel bloated. Those things, the outcomes you get from making these decisions, are what you value. You value feeling good all the time on a daily basis. You value not having achy joints and ankles. You value not feeling guilty around the food choices you're making. You value enjoying these different things because you are in control of yourself. You're in control of your decision making. And you're determined to continue to pursue this because of how well you feel all the time. As opposed to, again, on the extrinsic side of things, going to the extreme to reach this point, to fit in these pants, to fit in this dress, to appease somebody, to finish this contest. You're only gonna want to drive through that for so long. And that's the reason, again, most people rely on this extrinsic motivation, and it is temporary because at some point you're gonna reach that goal, or at some point you won't care about it as much because there are going to be days where this is hard. There are going to be days where you're really sore and you don't want to do this. You don't want to follow the plan that you have. And if you only have the external thing to worry about, you're more willing to let it go and let it slide. Be like, I don't even care about that dress anyway. I don't even, if I look like this at the event and these are the pictures I'm going to take, that's fine. I just don't want to do the work anymore. I want to eat this. I want to eat that. When you have that kind of view on what you're doing, your obstacles become bigger. The same obstacle can become more daunting and you're less willing to overcome it. Whereas if you are intrinsically motivated, when you are looking for that personal satisfaction, when you are doing this, when you are doing the activity as the end itself as opposed to a means to an end, you find the obstacle isn't as extreme. You are finding a way to kind of create a balance between the two. So when you don't feel like working out, you don't feel like moving, you know that, okay, if I just get up and stretch or something, I'll feel better in the short term. Maybe I could delay my training for another day. I really don't want to eat the salad, but I'll have half of it and have like a half slice of pie or something. You're more willing to find middle ground for yourself so that you can kind of accomplish both of the things that you want. And that just comes from being intrinsically motivated, finding fulfillment in these things and what they do for you, and not so much what they do for you, what you gain out of them, as opposed to what they can do for you, what you can gain out of it. And again, just to go further with this, this is kind of a spectrum. It's not like you only have intrinsic motivation or you only have extrinsic motivation. Some goals and some motivations can be a little bit of both or leaning more one way than the other, but just I'm not going to really get into the depth of that spectrum because there's like 7 levels to it, I believe, speaking on how psychology defines it. But just helping you understand that there is more to it than what is outside of you. There's an internal thing within you that you're going to gain from doing this thing consistently that you value deeply, that fulfills you and satisfies you in a way that you won't fully receive or at all if you're working only for the extrinsic reason. So the real secret here is in keeping this as a long-term thing and always following through and not falling back on the obstacles that you're faced on a day-to-day basis that could show up and will show up, even more likely on a weekly basis, that will show up, that will try to stop you, is shifting your perspective from the extrinsic and recognizing the intrinsic gains, recognizing the things that you value and you find fulfilling, and using that to fall in love with doing this thing. You know, I had a client very recently. They said it was the most amazing thing. They worked out for the first time in a way where they were actually celebrating their body. They went through a traumatic life event, and working out was always a chore for them up to this point for the last 2-3 months. And they actually followed through and decided, I'm gonna do this thing for me. I need some sort of release. I'm gonna go do this workout. They did the workout, and they felt so accomplished and proud of themselves that they were able to do this, feel good with their body, and put themselves in a position of power and control that they weren't able to outside of this life event. And that's only built their motivation and momentum so much stronger to continue following through with this, to continue persevering through this. Because these things, again, are amazing in and of themselves. You can enjoy them for as they are. You can use them as tools for yourself to become more physically capable, become more mentally capable, become more emotionally in control of yourself. And when you can shift that perspective to allow your nutrition and your training to do that, you've truly won. Because at the end of the day, you're doing what's best for you, mind, body, and soul. And whatever external motivation, external wins, successes, and goals you fulfill after that are just bonuses to what you're already getting from the thing. So I hope this made sense to you all, and you were able to gain a new perspective on things and find that intrinsic motivation that you need to keep going. Because if you don't find that, and you don't make the effort to look for it and ask these questions for yourself, you're gonna hit a wall at some point and take those steps backwards. So make sure that you're looking for those. But thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for taking time out of your day for this, and we will see you guys on the next episode.